We'll keep you up to date on the government shutdown and speak with lawmakers and federal workers at the center of the story. Also, how the Constitution has been amended and reinterpreted throughout history.
There are very difficult constitutional battles ahead, but there's a lot to be learned from the way those battles were waged in the past.
On the next Morning Edition from NPR News.
Weekday mornings on WNYC. It's Morning Edition on WNYC. I'm Michael Hill. NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch has brought new transparency to the department, but a WNYC analysis shows she's continuing to block some misconduct cases from going to trial. WNYC's Charles Lane reports.
Since Tisch was named police commissioner last year, the department has blocked the trials of 25 officers accused of misconduct. These include a case where an officer struck a woman without warning, or in another case, broke a handcuffed man's arm. But she has blocked far fewer trials than her predecessor, Edward Gabon, who blocked 82 trials in just over a year. Criminal justice advocates say blocking any trial amounts to a cover-up because it shields officers from public trials. Earlier this year, Tisch told the city council that she is being selective in how she uses her power.
But just because I can do something does not always mean that I should. I'm committed to being thoughtful about when I exercise this authority, and I have been.
Mac Mira ran Oakland's Civilian Police Oversight Agency and was a former police misconduct investigator in New York City. He says Tisch is burying misconduct.
It takes away a huge measure of transparency. It takes away the ability for there to be a public trial and for every member of the public to understand what happened and why.
The NYPD declined to comment on the record, but officials said her decisions are based on a thorough and thoughtful legal review.
That's WNYC's Charles Lane reporting.
Support for NPR comes from member stations and from RBC Wealth Management, where financial advisors work to understand individual goals and are dedicated to providing customized advice to help strengthen financial security. More at rbcwealthmanagement.com. The Pew Charitable Trusts, telling stories behind data and trends that shape our world today through its podcast After the Fact. Learn more at pewtrusts.org/afterthefact. And Easy Cater, designed to help organizations order food for meetings and events from a nationwide network of restaurants, create lunch programs for their employees, and manage food spend at easycater.com.
This is Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm Leila Fadel.
And I'm Steve Inskeep. The writer Jill Lepore wrote a history of the United States called These Truths. Now she's gone through the same history again for a book on the Constitution. She focuses on fights to amend or reinterpret our basic law long after it was drafted in 1787.
I just really love the agitation of it all.
The book We the People covers a lot of history. I asked Jill Lepore about one period that feels relevant now. In the early 1900s, Americans confronted a growing industrial economy, income inequality, and mass immigration. They responded with constitutional amendments, from women's voting rights to an income tax. And a powerful president, Woodrow Wilson, reinterpreted the document.
Wilson had, in fact, been a constitutional scholar. He advocated what came to be called, and is still often called, living constitutionalism.
Among other things, Wilson signed into law the creation of an independent Federal Reserve, setting aside claims that the Constitution did not allow it. That is the very same Fed whose independence President Trump is challenging now. Lepore says Wilson's idea of a living Constitution differed from the framers' idea of the Constitution as a machine.
So when they talked about checks and balances, they're picturing weights on strings balancing one another. And Wilson, he wanted to move beyond that notion, and he argued that the Constitution is an organism, a living thing that has to be allowed to grow naturally. And that remains in many ways a debate that Americans still have about the very nature of the Constitution.
Woodrow Wilson, I have noticed, still bothers modern-day conservatives. I want to play a bit of a recent interview with John Yoo, who's a conservative legal scholar, talking about that. Let's listen.
People like Woodrow Wilson, who I think is in many ways the godfather of this idea, thought that there were scientific answers to public policy, that you could get things exactly right. And so that politics were a dirty, messy business, and the last thing you would want than if you created a Federal Trade Commission or the Federal Reserve, probably the most powerful of our independent agencies. Yeah. is to allow a president elected at the head of a party to govern what it does.
What was it that Wilson and some of his successors like Franklin Roosevelt were doing to the government and to society?
Well, I think we just need to maybe pause for a moment to say that the left has also disavowed Wilson
True.
for his racism. Wilson was a Southerner who segregated the civil service. So Wilson and, of course, later FDR, but a number of Republicans in between were all involved in fortifying the federal government to steer the United States through the turn to a modern industrial economy and to try to find ways to adjust the U.S. Constitution to keep pace with what these developments meant for ordinary people. One of the things I found really kind of fun in working on this book was, so you can find all the arguments that a John Yoo is making now. You can find those in the 1920s and 1930s.
What was the effect on society that it was decided for that time that it was legal and constitutional, upheld by the Supreme Court, incidentally, to have independent agencies, technocrats, people trying by their lights to apply the best solutions to various economic problems with at least some insulation from directly elected officials?
Well, you get the buffering of the forces of the market. You get an insulation against the worst excesses of monopoly. You know, by the time you get to the 1930s, democracies all over the world are collapsing. They're kind of going in either direction, towards communism or towards fascism, you know, a kind of state-controlled economy. And FDR finds a way, a kind of compromise position to adjust the strictures within the Constitution to both protect the free market and also protect against the worst excesses of a free market.
In listening to you, I think you're saying that Franklin Roosevelt and some other presidents had an idea to respond to an ever larger and more powerful and more complicated economy with a more active government that was supposed to engage in the economy but not be under the hands of a dictator, as was happening in other countries around the world. Was that the idea that we're now, to some extent, challenging?
Yes. I mean, it is FDR's agenda and his accomplishments are depicted by extremists as extreme for the purpose of demonizing the New Deal. That was the case in the 1930s. It was unsuccessful then. I think it will ultimately be unsuccessful now because the kinds of benefits that accrue to societies as a whole in having an active federal government, the more those provisions are dismantled and withdrawn from ordinary Americans, the more visible they become and their absence becomes more painful.
What excites you when you go back to this era of people pushing for reform, pushing for changes to the Constitution or to its meaning?
It's just a much bigger, more colorful, wildly interesting canvas of constitutional history that makes me feel quite a bit better about a sense of possibility moving forward. I think to the degree that we kind of narrow our vision and look through a very, very tiny, tiny lens, like a little monocle, we feel kind of trapped in a very polarized, very stuck politics and very kind of stuck era of constitutionalism. But if you widen that out and look at the whole of American history in that broad canvas with teeming actors with all kinds of loud opinions and silent protests and nonviolent action and everything else and in between, it's a kind of glorious history.
You also, by taking this wide lens, make me think about unintended consequences. People push for a change, and it turns out that whatever they thought would happen is not what happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes people have been asking me, your book seems to be just celebrating amendment for its own sake. Actually, a lot of amendment ideas are really terrible ideas. And some of them, once put in place, turn out to not have the effect that was hoped for, or they're betrayed, or they're defied. I mean, we're looking right now, and we're in a moment right now where the birthright citizenship clause of the 14th Amendment, the Trump administration is insisting doesn't mean what it says. So, you know, there are very difficult constitutional battles ahead, but there's a lot to be learned from the way those battles were waged in the past.
Jill Lepore is the author of We the People, A History of the U.S. Constitution. Such a pleasure to talk with you again, Jill.
Oh, thanks so much, Steve.
This is NPR News.
And this is WNYC in New York. Coming up today on all of it, a pair of personal finance experts share tips and strategies for Gen Xers planning to retire. That conversation and more at noon today on WNYC's All of It. We're in the upper 50s right now and sunny skies.
WNYC receives support from Shepherd Mullen, serving clients in Manhattan for over 20 years. With more than 1,100 lawyers globally, Shepherd Mullen helps companies address today's legal, real estate, business, and regulatory challenges. More at shepherdmullen.com.
If you believe democracy requires a free press, your station is WNYC, 93.9 FM and AM 820, NPR News and the New York Conversation.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Nora Rahm. The Republican-led Senate is voting a fourth time today on dueling partisan stopgap bills to reopen the government. NPR's Claudia Grisales reports the bills are expected to fail again, extending the shutdown into next week.
Senate Majority Leader John Thune hopes the repeated votes will pressure Democrats to help the GOP. But if they don't, Thune warns the Trump administration could make good on plans for massive layoffs of federal workers.
Anytime you're in this situation, you have to manage a shutdown. Decisions have to be made about what to prioritize, where you're going to spend money. I expect there are going to be some decisions coming out about that. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
Republicans control 53 seats in the Senate, so they need at least 7 Democrats to reach a required 60-vote threshold to overcome a filibuster. But Democrats are demanding an extension of expiring Affordable Care Act subsidies, and Republicans say that will not happen as stopgap measure. Claudia Grisales, NPR News.
The head of Denmark's Defense Intelligence Service says Russia is planning incidents against European armed forces. It wants to create insecurity and discord between allies to stop support for Ukraine. The assessment comes amid more drone disruptions of European airspace, including one last night in Munich that forced the delay or cancellation of dozens of flights. This is NPR News.
And this is WNYC, upper 70s with sunshine now at 8:32. Good morning, I'm Michael Hill. Authorities say more than 200 animals and a 95-year-old woman have been rescued from a hoarding situation on Long Island. WNYC's Julia Hayward has more.
Suffolk County prosecutors say they found cats, dogs, parrots, and even flying squirrels living in squalor, with cages filled with filth and contaminated food. Authorities say a 95-year-old woman was also trapped on the second floor by piles of trash. Samantha Boyd is a licensed wildlife rehabilitator. She's now facing charges of animal cruelty and elder endangerment. Her partner was also arrested. All 206 animals were rescued with help from local police and wildlife rescue groups.
Boyd's attorney's information was not immediately available. Subway riders, make sure to load up on your Omni card with money before tonight. MTA says the Omni system will undergo some updates this weekend. That means passengers will not be able to buy physical Omni cards or reload them with more money. The agency also says tap payments will not immediately be processed during the system outage. Charges will go through once the system upgrades are complete. The outage will run from 10 tonight until 7 in the evening on Sunday. The MTA says these upgrades are necessary to continue phasing out Metro cards as the year goes on. Oh boy. New York Yankees rookie pitcher Cam Schlittler is off a record-setting postseason debut that helped the team eliminate their rival, the Boston Red Sox, in the Bronx last night. The rookie seemed unfazed as he tossed 8 shutout innings, striking out 12 Red Sox batters and no walks.
I was locked in, so I knew exactly what I needed to do and go out there, especially against my hometown team.
Schlittler was born in Massachusetts and grew up a Red Sox fan. Boy, talking about salt in the wound. The Yankees offense scored all of their 4 runs in the 4th inning with some strong offense and help from shoddy defense by the Red Sox. The Yankees play the Toronto Blue Jays next in a best-of-5 series. It starts tomorrow in Canada. Downtown number 7 trains and Q trains both ways running with delays. Metro North trains from Grand Central to New Haven, 15 minutes behind schedule. And on the roads, a crash on the lower level of the westbound Queensboro Bridge, 2 lanes blocked there. 57 and sunny now.
Support for NPR comes from WNYC members and from Focus Features, presenting Anemone, starring Daniel Day-Lewis. Two brothers wrestle with their past and the one secret that has kept them apart for decades. Anemone, rated R, in theaters today. And Your Part-Time Controller, specializing in nonprofit accounting and committed to supporting nonprofits with financial management services such as budgeting and forecasting. yptc.com/NPR.
It's Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm Steve Inskeep.
And I'm Layla Fadel. Good morning. President Trump has made the determination that the United States is in an armed conflict with unspecified drug cartels. That's according to a document obtained by NPR that the administration sent to Congress about its military strikes on boats in the Caribbean. It says we're carrying drugs. NPR Justice correspondent Ryan Lucas is with us in studio this morning to talk about this. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, so what is this document and what does it say?
So this is a notification that was sent to Congress by the administration as required by law. NPR obtained a copy of it. And what it purports to do is lay out a bit more of a legal justification for the administration's military strikes, as you said, against suspected drug boats over the past month. It says the president is taking action under his Article 2 powers as commander-in-chief and in self-defense. That we have heard from the administration before. What's interesting here is that it says the president has determined the cartels are non-state armed groups, that the U.S. is in a non-international armed conflict with them, and that the Pentagon is conducting operations against them under the laws of armed conflict.
Okay, so before this document came out, you spoke to a lot of experts on this, legal experts, foreign policy experts, who all called these strikes illegal extrajudicial killings. So does this letter change things, give legal cover here?
I wouldn't go that far, no. Legal experts say there are still a lot of holes, a lot of issues with the powers the president is asserting with this. Here's Brian Finucane. He's a national security lawyer and expert with the International Crisis Group.
What this boils down to is the president of the United States asserting a prerogative to kill people based solely on his own say-so.
So yes, there are more legal terms here. Non-state armed groups engaged in a non-international armed conflict with the U.S. And that, Finucane says, in essence, echoes the legal framework that the U.S. worked under in the post-9/11 war on terror. But Finucane says the facts were very different then. Al-Qaeda killed some 3,000 people on 9/11. Congress authorized the use of military force against an actual armed group, Al-Qaeda. And none of that applies in the context of the drug cartels. Finucane says the facts just do not support the idea or the legal conclusion that the U.S. is in an armed conflict with narco-trafficking groups.
Outside of armed conflict, there is a word for the premeditated killing of people, and that word is murder. And just because the administration puts together this fig leaf of a legal justification does not legitimize these premeditated killings in the Caribbean.
Okay, so what has the administration said about exactly what happened in the strikes?
Well, they have said that they've blown up 3 suspected drug boats so far. In the first strike, the president said 11 members of the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua were killed. The administration has provided no evidence that the people on the boat were indeed Tren de Aragua, or that there were drugs on the boat, or that the boat posed a direct threat to the United States. Trump was asked by reporters at the White House after the second strike about providing proof. Here's what he said.
We have proof. All you have to do is look at the cargo that was like it's spattered all over the ocean. Big bags of cocaine and fentanyl all over the place.
Now, the administration didn't provide anything for us to see those big bags of cocaine and fentanyl all over the ocean. Trump did say they have recorded evidence, but he didn't elaborate. Now, White House spokesperson Anna Kelly said yesterday the president has acted in line with the law of armed conflict and is making good on his promise to take on cartels. But again, the administration hasn't provided any evidence publicly that would support these claims. And legal experts say even then, trafficking drugs has never been considered combat or direct participation in hostilities, which means legally, these narco traffickers are considered civilians and not people who can be lethally targeted like they have been.
NPR Justice correspondent Ryan Lucas, thank you for your reporting, Ryan.
Thank you.
This is a deeply interesting segment of the program, getting updated on national security here, because we next hear about Ukrainian drone strikes. Ukrainian drones are inflicting significant damage on oil refineries deep inside Russia, and the Trump administration has been hinting that it may be willing to help. NPR's Greg Myrie is covering this. Greg, good morning.
Good morning, Steve.
Okay, so first, how is Ukraine able to carry out these longer and longer range attacks?
Well, Ukraine's drones now reach hundreds of miles inside Russia, and the main target has been oil refineries, which they strike at night, mostly in southern and western Russia. These set off huge fireballs in the night sky. You see the evidence all over social media, though the Russians aren't saying much about them. In some cases, it appears the refineries are knocked offline, but hard to tell how quickly they're being repaired. Ukraine has carried out about 25 such strikes in August and September against some of the country's largest refineries, which produce gasoline used by civilians and diesel used by the military.
25 strikes. I'd heard about a few of these, but I appreciate you pulling it all together. Now, let me ask what the United States' attitude is toward this. I know the president in recent days has changed his tone toward Ukraine. He seems much more positive, but is the U.S. changing the aid it provides?
Well, not so far, but there are a couple possibilities here. First, the Trump administration says it's considering Ukraine's request for Tomahawk missiles. Now, these are powerful, accurate, and travel much further than any other weapons the U.S. has provided. We should stress no decision has been made, and there are questions about whether the U.S. has sufficient stockpiles. Second, the Wall Street Journal has reported that Trump has agreed to increase intelligence sharing with Ukraine to focus on Russian energy sites. The CIA and others are not commenting. Now, here in Washington, Andrew Weiss at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace says Trump can't just threaten Russia. He really would need to take action.
The Russian position on Ukraine has not budged 1 inch. And Donald Trump is obviously very frustrated about that. But simply putting on Twitter that you're possibly going to help Ukraine in various ways is not the same as actually helping Ukraine.
And now in Russia, President Vladimir Putin says that if Ukraine does get Tomahawks, that could lead to a, quote, whole new level of escalation.
Greg, I would have imagined that Russia, having had generations to prepare for attack, thinking about potential American attack, as a matter of fact, would be ready with strong air defenses. Why are they having so much trouble defending against these drones and possibly other things?
Well, Russia is the largest country in the world, and that means massive resources, oil, gas, and minerals. But it also means it's very hard to defend everywhere. And these Russian refineries were out of range previously or weren't being targeted and didn't need to be defended. Now, suddenly, they're vulnerable with relatively little protection. So Russian civilians are facing higher gas prices. We're seeing long lines in a number of places at gas stations in regions throughout Russia.
Wow, so it's affecting civilians. Is it affecting the Russian military?
At this point, no. Russia produces a huge amount of diesel, more than enough for the military. Again, here's Andrew Weiss.
The Russian military runs on diesel. Russia produces twice as much diesel annually as it needs and exports the rest.
So Russia has a cushion when it comes to diesel for the military, but we are seeing strains on Russia's economy overall. Economic growth this year is expected to be just 1%.
NPR's Greg Myrie, thanks so much.
Sure thing, Steve.
This is NPR News.
Support for NPR comes from member stations and from the Doris Duke Foundation, which aims to support the well-being of people and the planet for a more creative, equitable, and sustainable future, and the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. RWJF is a national philanthropy working toward a future where health is no longer a privilege, but a right. Learn more at rwjf.org.
It's Morning Edition on WNYC. I'm Michael Hill. It's Friday, and you know what that means. It's our weekly installment of In Season, and this week we're highlighting apples. Love them. Amelia Tarpey is a program and publicity manager for Grow NYC Green Markets. WNYC recently joined Amelia at the Union Square Green Market for a tour of the apple stands.
The Empire apple, it's actually dubbed New York State's favorite apple. It's super sweet. It's a red apple. It sort of has like a waxy sheen on it. Sometimes a little splash of green in the mix. I'm just going to take a bite of this one. You can hear it. Next, I want to talk about golden russet apples. These are a really fun heirloom variety. They actually were first discovered in like the early 1800s, so they've been around a long time. They're kind of like this golden color, and then they have this russeting on it. It's in the name. Russeting is this phenomenon that happens in apples where it kind of develops like almost cork-like texture on the skin. It doesn't make for a good commercial apple because people see that and they get a little freaked out by it, but oftentimes it means that there's really good flavor there. Another newer apple variety that a lot of our orchards have started growing recently has a really fun name. It's called Luda Crisp. And, it's a apple variety that actually was developed in Ohio and apparently no relation to Ludacris, but it's a, fun connection. So next Friday, we have our annual Cider Village event. We bring in cideries from across the state to come sell and sample their ciders throughout the day. And this is hard cider we're talking about. So they take their apples, press them, bottle that, age it until it ferments and gets alcoholic. Our cider makers are a really important part of our apple economy. There's lots of apples that, they're not necessarily great for fresh eating, or they'll find sort of orchards that have been deserted but the apple trees are all gnarly and still holding on, and they'll harvest those apples and make cider with them. So really cool things going on.
Amelia Tarpey is a program and publicity manager for Grow NYC Green Market. She says apples are going for $3 to $4 a pound right now. Cider Village is next Friday, the 10th, from 10 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon at the Union Square Green Market.
It's Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm Steve Inskeep.
And I'm Leila Fadel. The WNBA Finals tip off tonight. Normally, the series between, I don't know why I got confused here. Normally, the series between the Las Vegas Aces and the Phoenix Mercury would be the biggest story in the league. But instead, a controversy has taken over. NPR sports correspondent Becky Sullivan is here to talk it through. Hi, Becky.
Good morning.
Good morning. So what's this controversy about?
So basically the other day, a player named Napheesa Collier had this end of season press conference where she unleashed this very strident, pointed criticism of league leadership and especially of Commissioner Cathy Engelbert. So Collier talked about a bunch of issues that have been simmering for a long time, things like referees and pay for players and leadership just not listening to concerns. And it's important because this is a very prominent player. She's the star for the Minnesota Lynx. She's a many-time All-Star. This year she was voted the second most valuable player in the league. And she's just really respected. She's very calm. She's very smart. And so for her to go scorched earth like this is a very big deal.
Okay, so tell me more about what she said and why it's caused such a stir.
Well, I think it's caused a stir because the criticisms of the commissioner were very direct and personal. And so Collier said she had tried raising these concerns in private conversations with Engelbert. It hadn't gone anywhere. I'll play you a little clip of what Collier said. She is recalling sitting down with the commissioner earlier this year and pressing her about the league's very low pay for these young stars like Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Paige Beckers, who have brought with them these massive fan bases. Here's what
her response was, Caitlin should be grateful she makes $16 million off the court because without the platform that the WNBA gives her, she wouldn't make anything. And in that same conversation, she told me players should be on their knees thanking their lucky stars for the media rights deal that I got them. That's a mentality driving our league from the top. We go to battle every day to protect a shield that doesn't value us.
Wow.
Yeah, so you get a little flavor of that. Engelbert, in response, she put out a statement. She said she was disheartened by Collier's remarks. She said she has utmost respect for WNBA players. She's committed to the future of them in the league. But this pay issue especially is the very biggest tension at the heart of the league right now. These low salaries for players that predate the boom in attention. Now the league is bringing in all this new revenue. The league salary for those players that I mentioned, like Caitlin Clark, is about $80,000. So anyway, it's not surprising that there has been a lot of support voiced for Collier this week from other players.
So that's hanging over the finals. Game 1 is tonight. How are players on the two teams talking about what Collier said?
Yeah, well, of course, they were asked about it. It's the biggest story of the WNBA right now. So the Las Vegas star, A'ja Wilson, she said she was, quote, disgusted by Collier's accounts of what Engelbert said. Both teams do say they're trying to focus on the games, obviously. Here's guard Kahlia Copper from the Phoenix Mercury.
We are standing behind Fee. We are in heavy support of everything that has to do with the league because this is a really big year. But just right now, we are really locked in.
And actually, just to follow up on that, she calls it a big year. Part of that is that the union contract between the players and the league expires later this month, and that is now shaping up to be a big fight, too.
Okay, before I let you go, though, you have to tell me about what to expect in the games themselves.
Yeah, it's a best-of-7 series. That's a first for the WNBA. It used to just be 5. The Aces are led by A'ja Wilson. She's a 4-time MVP. The Mercury are back in the finals for the first time in a few years after adding this duo of all-star forwards in Satu Sabally and Alyssa Thomas to their roster. 2 really great teams. They played 4 times this regular season. Vegas won 3 of those times, so it's not surprising that they're the favorites, but I think anything can happen over the course of 7 games.
That's NPR's Becky Sullivan. Thank you, Becky.
You're welcome.
It's Morning Edition from NPR News. Our theme music is inspired by BJ Liederman. I'm Leila Fadel.
And I'm Steve Inskeep.
Yeah, this is WNYC in New York. Coming up on 9 o'clock here in just a few minutes, and also coming up a celebration of New York City forests. That's on the Brian Lair Show at 10 o'clock this morning. You'll want to stick around for that conversation. We're at 61 degrees right now with sunny skies across the city, on the way to a high today of 72 with the calm wind. Yes, lots of sunshine, clear and cool tonight, down to 59. And then this weekend, it's going to feel warm again, sunny and 81. Light wind and chilly nights. Monday and Tuesday, just about the same. And then Tuesday, it looks as if we have a chance of showers. The first one for a while there, Tuesday evening, some showers. And then rain chances on Wednesday. We need the rain. We need the showers. 61 and sunny now. It's 8:52.
Public media is a refuge from commercialism, which is why you don't hear any ads on WNYC. Business support and the recognition the station provides is a critical way WNYC is able to work free from fear or favor. Your business can support our work at sponsorship.wnyc.org.
Marketplace Morning Report is coming up next, and then in 10 minutes at 9 o'clock, it's the BBC NewsHour on WNYC. Let's check in with London and see what they're working on. Hello, London.
Good morning, WNYC. I'm Tim Franks. On today's NewsHour, for the first time, a woman is chosen to lead the Anglican Church worldwide, and that new album is out. That's BBC NewsHour at 9 on WNYC.
A closed federal government means no September jobs report this morning. We'll try an instrument landing instead.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Viking, exploring the world in comfort. With a fleet of small ships, Viking offers travel experiences for the thinking person. Discover more at Viking.com. And by TreviPay, a managed B2B payments platform for global brands, offering zero-touch AR plus tools to help reduce DSO at TreviPay.com.
I'm David Brancaccio in Los Angeles. The partial government shutdown means 2 of the top 5 most important monthly readings on the economy will not come out today as scheduled. It's the freshest count of the number of people on payrolls in America and the separate unemployment rate. It would have covered the month just ended September. We assigned my colleague Samantha Fields to use whatever other data is available to piece together an approximation.
No one does jobs data quite like the BLS.
We do have private data to look at, and that is meaningful.
Mark Hamrick at Bankrate says it can't replace government data, but reports from private companies, including payroll processing firm ADP and outplacement firm Challenger Gray & Christmas, do give us glimpses into the labor market.
Those data points, I think, are very consistent with what we've been seeing otherwise, and that is this is a low hire, low fire job market.
Seeing the latest private data has only made Angela Hanks at the Century Foundation more curious about the government data, though.
So, for example, when I see the ADP is predicting that we're going to have lost 32,000 jobs in September, it's certainly cause for concern. But I think my curiosity is, what are we missing from that report, and what more do we need to know about the health of the labor market that's not captured here?
The Chicago Fed has just come out with a new analysis of the labor market that pulls together nearly a dozen different sources of data in one place. It'll come out twice a month and include federal data, unemployment claims, and the jobs report when available, private data from companies including Indeed and Morning Consult, and Google search activity on unemployment. Scott Brave at the Chicago Fed says for September,
we see a little bit less job finding going on. We see a little bit more job loss. But on balance, not a whole lot has changed.
Including the unemployment rate. The Chicago Fed estimates it's still right around 4.3%. I'm Samantha Fields for Marketplace.
Markets S&P and NASDAQ futures are both up by less than 0.1%. Dow futures are up 60 points, more than 0.1%. The benchmark 10-year interest rate, 4.08%. That is down a sliver. Apple has blocked an app that allows people to anonymously report and therefore track sightings of federal immigration agents. IceBlock was free, but now the App Store is showing no longer available. The developer says it was given notice of, quote, objectionable content and claims it had about 1 million users.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Amazon Business, dedicated to helping businesses save time on office tasks and empower leaders with business buying solutions that support teams to focus on growing the business. Learn about smart business buying at amazonbusiness.com. And by MarketWatch. From housing prices to inflation, the market is uncertain. MarketWatch has tools to help navigate the road ahead. MarketWatch. Don't short yourself.
It was Napoleon Bonaparte who supposedly called England a nation of shopkeepers. It was meant as an insult. On this side of the pond, we like to embrace entrepreneurship. Northwestern University economist Louis Kane's line is, what became the United States of America was born of entrepreneurship. Now, there's new research suggesting we have been missing a lot of entrepreneurs when we've tried to count them up. Marketplace's senior economics contributor Chris Farrell has been reading into this. Hey, Chris.
Good morning, David.
Where'd they find these, hidden entrepreneurs?
Well, David, there's just been this surge in non-employer businesses, businesses without payroll employees. And these include independent contractors, freelancers, moonlighters, and other solopreneurs. And while tens of millions of people are engaged in this kind of self-employment, they're often missed. They're absent from the statistics on labor market trends and business dynamism.
All right, but not all these, for instance, solopreneurs, as you put it, operate under the radar. I mean, there's data on businesses without employees, of course. Yet I'm getting the impression we could do better getting a deeper sense of this vital part of the economy.
There's a recent paper by a handful of scholars, and it's an ongoing effort, David, to create a comprehensive database for the Census Bureau on self-employment. Their investigation is nuanced, it's complex, but this finding stood out. There were 33 million people engaged in some form of self-employment in 2019. Now, in sharp contrast, the Bureau of Labor Statistics has calculated a total of 15.3 million self-employed in 2019, so half the new results.
Yeah, let's repeat that number. The title of the paper is Business Owners and the Self-Employed, 33 million and counting.
So perhaps one of these overlooked entrepreneurs is Khalik Rogers. He's founder of Minneapolis-based Good Riddance Consulting, and its for-profit consulting business mostly works on, convening, gathering different groups together to design strategies to help build community and address common problems.
I work with city, government, county level, private business, people that want to go from good to great, or businesses that have good intentions but don't always have an intended impact.
So one project Good Riddance worked on led to the Minnesota Housing Agency funding school district programs where students learn the construction trades while building homes for low-income residents or Minnesotans who've been experiencing homelessness.
So what we do at Good Riddance is curate that environment and that space to bring those stakeholders collectively together to create an outcome and a solution that is measurable, that is feasible to implement and practical.
And what you see, it's not just one venture. People tend to have portfolios of ventures.
Yeah, that's one of the striking numbers that comes out of this study. Self-employed, they operate multiple enterprises at the same time. For example, Rogers, that we just heard from, he runs a nonprofit, Catalyst for Systems Change, that works on youth development. So these data sets are really fascinating, and what these economists are developing is a more nuanced picture of the many ways entrepreneurship plays out in America.
Marketplace's senior economics contributor Chris Farrell is in St. Paul, Minnesota. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, David.
Our executive producer is Nancy Fargali. Our digital team includes Antoinette Brock, Emily McCune, and Dylan Mietinen. Our engineers are Rachel Breeze and Tessa Block. In Los Angeles, I'm David Brancaccio. This is the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.
WNYC is supported by Drexel University, whose cooperative education program positions students to explore future careers and discover their ideal profession before graduation. More about experiential education at drexel.edu.
Amanda Rozon, Veronica Del Valle, and Alec Hamilton produced WNYC's Morning Edition. Milton Ruiz and Shayna Sangstock engineered this week's shows. Up next, it's the BBC NewsHour on WNYC. Today on the Brian Lehrer Show, after that, the election series 30 Issues in 30 Days continues with a look at where the New Jersey gubernatorial candidates stand on fixing transit in New Jersey. That's at 10. 61 with sunshine out today, sunny, and 72 with the calm wind, clear and cool tonight. Warm this weekend under that sunshine.
This is WNYC FM, HD, and AM New York.
Welcome to NewsHour. It's live from the BBC World Service in London. I'm Tim Franks. For the first time in its nearly 500-year history, the Church of England has chosen a woman as its leader.
Some will be